Hey everyone, welcome to the Defining You podcast. Our guest today is a woman who wears many hats. Hello, Felicia. Welcome.
Hello, Helena. It's so great to be joining you. I am so honored to have this opportunity to be chatting with you on your podcast.
Yeah, it is really a pleasure having you come on today. So I like to start by, getting our audience to get acquainted with the guests. So why don't we begin by starting with your story? Let's talk about you and how you came to the United States, your undocumented immigration status, and what was that life like for you?
Yeah, it actually, I never intended to be undocumented. So I came to the US in 96 on a visitor's visa for a conference at the UN, actually. And I never intended to stay more than the time that I was supposed to stay in the country. Unfortunately, what happened was my aunt, who had moved here a few months earlier, actually had a major event with her then husband, and
Mm-hmm.
she was an absolute emotional wreck. And
Mm-hmm.
somehow, I'm always the one, it seems, in my family that helps to pick up the pieces.
We always have
And
one
so
of
I
those.
felt it was my obligation to
Mm-hmm.
stay and help her because she was absolutely falling apart. She had a little son. She had nowhere to go, and so I essentially sacrificed my status to
Mm-hmm.
basically stay here and help her. And at the time, I didn't even think of myself and what was going to happen or how I
Mm-hmm.
was going to make it until it was this harsh reality. And it was, a lot of years of a lot of stress and tension.
Mm-hmm.
But I was actually, I already had a degree in communications at the time when I came here. I was a professional, and so I was able to get an organization to sponsor me as a
Mm.
professional. And so that was one thing. And you thought at the time, okay, so this is solved. I mean, it's gonna be okay. But
Mm-hmm.
no, it took me 10 years to essentially get a simple clarification that they call it from the Department of Labor, to say that you're not taking away any jobs from an American and all of these things. So 10 years for a simple application to be
Mm-hmm.
processed.
Oh my
And I
goodness.
tell you, it was a lot of pressure, but by grace, I just rose above it. And it's so funny because nobody really knew that I was undocumented. I went about my life living it like as any US citizen. I even went to Congress and lobbied for immigration status for people as an undocumented immigrant that nobody knew. So I was
Are
living
you
very bold.
serious?
Oh, yes, I was very bold and brave about everything.
Mm.
Really just lived my life and
Wow.
really until even when I got the green card and even when I became a US citizen, it seemed like almost like it had already happened, like it was
Mm-hmm.
not even a big deal.
Wow.
But it really, so that's why I really have so much empathy for immigrants. And I still, even though I'm so busy every week, I still take time out to keep my immigration column going for the Amsterdam News, because I've lived it. I know what it's like, but
Mm. So
it really
that's
is a matter of how you tell what you tell yourself. And if you tell yourself, look, I'm not an undocumented immigrant. I'm an immigrant who happened to be
mhm,
undocumented.
right.
It is
Hmm.
not who I am. And so that's really how I was able to do it. And in all of that time, I was there, working, starting my own business and doing a bunch of things that people would be amazed that, wow, you were really undocumented, really? I mean, yes.
Wow, Felicia. So now I understand where that passion for your work around the immigration come from. So for those who are listening, can you tell us where did you come from when you migrated to the United States? When you actually came to the United States, because you really didn't migrate, you actually came for something different and ended up staying because of the circumstances you just talked about.
Sure. I moved here. Of course, I was born in Guyana. So I moved from Guyana, and that was 1996. I came directly straight to New York, like most immigrants landing at JFK and being amazed at everything. But yeah, so Guyana is really where I was born. But because I think of my passion for everything and what I experienced and what I went through, and how I got into the Caribbean diaspora in New York at the time, I just evolved into a person who feels they're from the Caribbean. So it doesn't matter what island, I still embrace it as if it was my own home, and still try my best to help wherever the need is that I can pitch in.
Right. So what did you do before you started your first company, and then we can get into that? What did you do before that?
Sure. So I came from Guyana. I actually had a degree already in mass communications. I was a trainee announcer producer there. I worked as a newspaper reporter. I also worked as an account executive at an advertising agency. And then after I graduated, I was a parliamentary assistant to the MP who was in the opposition Working People's Alliance. So a lot of people may know Walter Rodney. So Rodney's party. I was actually a parliamentary assistant, and that is how I came to the U.S. for one of their the conferences at the UN at the time that was basically focused on growing democracy around the world, essentially.
So we hear about the stories about folks that are undocumented, and we treat most undocumented people in the United States like they do not matter. But hearing your story, your case of being undocumented, we lumped everybody in the same thing, but your circumstance clearly shows, that's a good reason to overstay on your visa. You had a family member with an issue, and I just wish that more people would be sensitive to the issues of people who come here, and some of them are undocumented. There are many reasons why people are undocumented. So now you started your own company. What motivated you to start your own business? Where did that idea come from?
Let me just back up a little bit. So when I overstayed, now I have no real option as to what to do. So I was basically living about, I would say, 2 months. I came in the August of 96, almost September. And I was living without any way of, like, I don't know how I'm going to make any money. No. So now the reality is starting to hit home. And so there was a lady who was actually my mother's cousin at the time, and she was here. And, she was coming and going back, and she was actually coming here to basically babysit and be a nanny and a housekeeper. And so she said, do you want a short-term job like doing this? And I'm, at the time, I'm like, I'm going to do anything, whatever it takes. And so for about 3 months, so from the September to the December, I actually worked in somebody's house, taking care of the kids, watching them, and cleaning their home for like 3 months, So I did that, and I was earning it was 3 days a week. I was earning $150 US, which at the time seemed like a lot of money. And so helping my aunt with 100 of that and keeping $50 for myself. And so that's really what happened between that time. So obviously now I am, I'm obviously a professional. I'm like, this is not for me. I'm not here to do this sort of stuff. So I essentially started, finding out about the system. How does the system work? What exactly you have to do? And I realized that you could actually get a tax ID number to work in the country as an independent person. And so that's what I did. And then I started working at a newspaper, first in Brooklyn as an assistant editor, and then in Queens. And it was in Queens at the Queens Chronicle that I basically made a lot of headway in terms of journalism and being an assistant news editor there. And from there, I continued in the field in radio, which I obviously was doing back in Guyana, but which I picked up back here. And so that's really how I sort of evolved. And in all of that, I was also being an advocate. I got involved with the Caribbean Immigrant Services, and the Caribbean Immigrant Services essentially is the one that ended up sponsoring me because I was so active with them and sponsoring me as their media person and their communications person. And so that was how everything evolved. But in all of that, I was hustling everything, like doing nothing. Nothing stopped me. And that's really what I want people to understand. It's like, it's not the circumstance that you're dealt, it's how you deal with the circumstances that, the hand you're dealt. And nothing stopped me. So I was doing, being a news editor, a journalist, just really doing that.
Were you
And
doing
then
that
I got into,
undocumented? Were you still in that
yes, all of that. I
how
was
did
on
how
documented. I mean,
how
I really, really, I could tell you some stories about some of the bravery and some of the things I just was, I mean, I think now looking back, like I don't have as much fearlessness as I did then. I don't know if it was youth. I don't know what it was, but I was very, very unafraid of pretty much, any,
consequences?
I
Yeah.
just did what I had to do. And I just,
Wow.
something. So the business setup it came a lot later. It was about 2010. And at the time I had a job in the Cayman Islands remotely that I was working on setting up their digital news site. It was going to be the first in the Caribbean that competed with Canada, and I did all that. And then months after I did all of this work, the guy decides that he's going to fire me. So here I was now on my butt again with nothing and thinking like, how am I going to do this? And, in all of this, I'm also having really bad episodes of, darkness and coping with sort of like, how do I survive and, crying and really in my dark moments and in my private moments. Nobody knew this, but I was really dealing with a whole lot myself. And so I was like, again, God, how am I going to do this? And so I just decided, the technology at the time, the internet was growing and everything. And I just decided, you know what, I'm not going to work for anybody else. Now I'm going to just do this for me. I can do this. It's the same thing I did for him, I can do for me. And that's really how it's just all started. It really was something that came out of pressure that really caused us to start, me alone, basically at the time, to start, the company. And it started as the news agency. And that's really been the genesis of how I am today.
The news agency, can you say that name?
Sure. So it's News Americas now, but when we started out, it was Heartbeat News, and it was at the time the only daily in the Caribbean diaspora. So it was online, the only daily news, and it actually started at the same time when the Haitian crisis, the earthquake started in 2010. And so it was the time. And so I would just sit and basically write all of the news and post it on the website and send it out as a newsletter. And that's really how it started growing. And then from there, I got the idea to do Cara PR Wire because I saw that there was a PR News Wire, the Business Wire, Hispanic Wire, but nothing for the Caribbean. And that's how I essentially came up with that idea for Cara PR Wire. And a little over, I think it was about less than a year after I launched it, it became part of the PR Newswire. So now we really are the official PR Wire of the Caribbean and part of the PR Newswire. And that has been like one of the major things that has really happened to kind of propel the business forward.
Yeah. So the both of us we've done some work together. I don't know if you remember. I've interviewed you on my radio show a few times, and I also carried your news on my radio show. So definitely, yes. I don't know if you remember that, but I carried that feed whenever I did my radio show. And that was a great compliment because it also shared the news that was relevant to the audience, my target audience. So definitely I'm a beneficiary of that service that you provided. Yeah. So again, you have Carry PR, you have a news angle, you also have other branches. What is the real focus of some of the things that you do? I know you mentioned Caribbean PR, and then you have the news, American News Now. Is that what it is?
Yeah, News Americas.
News Americas. Okay. And then you have Invest Caribbean, and then I think there's also another component. Can you
Part B
just
communication.
right?
Yeah. So it's
So would you say that you are a PR firm and you have different areas that you service?
I think we would say that we are pretty much a PR and ad agency that really provides a number of services under one roof.
Right.
And that's essentially what we do with a large focus. Most of our focus is obviously on the Caribbean, and that's really our main.
Right. So that will definitely lead me to my next question. You live in the United States. There are plenty of need in the United States for PR services. What made you keep your focus in the Caribbean and to continue to serve that market?
Well, I think it's mostly, my passion for the region. When I came here, I quickly realized that I was not just a immigrant from Guyana. I was an immigrant from the Caribbean, and that's really how I got lumped in. And
Yeah.
that essentially stuck with me because, I faced a lot of discrimination, a lot of racism
Mm.
from mainstream America. And one of the major things that I realized that it was like a belonging that, you know what,
Hmm.
regardless of whatever they want to call me, the one thing I know for sure is I belong to the Caribbean. I am a
Okay.
Caribbean immigrant. Like nobody can take that away. And so that's my identity. And I think
I'm with you on that.
I've embraced that with so much passion. And I still continue to fight to make sure that people recognize that
Mhm.
we're not, dismissed as unimportant, small, all of the negative things they want to say. I always stand up and say, I'm from the Caribbean, regardless of where I go in the world. That's the first thing I say when they ask me, where are you from? From the Caribbean.
Right. So you talked earlier about being unafraid, and of course, you've matured over the years. So I'm going to ask you, what is your biggest motivator and what keeps Felicia going?
It's a lot. I mean, obviously, my own survival, because I work for myself. So I have to keep going for that. But I think it's also bigger than that. It's a passion. It's a passion for our people, and it's a passion for our people to be recognized as important and as important as they are. And that is something that I realized that we don't often get. We sort of get this disrespect where it's okay to have a big party and, oh, the Caribbean is great for partying and it's great for food and
Mm-hmm.
the culture is great. But when you talk about important things like the issues and business and those issues, those are not things that people think about. Not
Mm-hmm.
any business, not any investors, not the government of the United States, not major governments around the world. And that's really what I think really annoys me and really pisses me off. And I think that is what really drives me to keep our
Yeah.
focus
Mm-hmm.
on, on making sure that people are not taking advantage of our region and our people.
Mm-hmm. I remember when the vice president was put in that position. I remember you held an event for Caribbean National. Do you want to tell us how did you happen to make that connection with the vice president of the United States?
Sure. Well, first of all, what it was also the passion that really drove me to do that event. It was not something that I wanted to take on because I felt I was drained from fighting for the census. And really, I was just really drained and I was doing too many things. But what got me to do that event was when they essentially won the race. What the media, the mainstream media, was constantly doing was ignoring the fact that she was also Caribbean American. So we heard a lot that she was Black and Asian American. You never once heard that she was Caribbean American. And that really triggered something in me. And I said,
Mm.
it's not going to be that easy. We're not going to sit back and let them just say that. So
Mm-hmm.
that was the genesis of how this whole thing came about. I mean, and it was really a lot of work to do it without any money at all. But I was so amazed at grace and how God works and really just bringing everything together in terms of these artists who volunteered and connecting me with the right people for this event to happen. In fact, one of the things that happened in terms of her actually being on the event was that I had to play real hardball with them at the time. And that was the campaign, the transition, because they had this disrespect for the Caribbean. They really didn't think it was that important. And I told them, listen, if you guys don't get her on, I'm going to go right out there and tell them exactly that you did not really appreciate it and really respect our votes. So how are we going to go? You want to play this? I can play hardball all day. So go right ahead. I will make a big public announcement. And that got them very much scared. And really everything else is history in terms of how she came on and all of that. But
can you just give, for those who are listening, you and I know what the event was. Can you just give us a little background of what that event was?
It was basically, we call it a virtual celebration. It was a virtual inauguration celebration of Caribbean American Kamala, because that's what she is. And really, we wanted to make sure that the Caribbean was at the table and people knew that she was also from the Caribbean. So it really is. And of course, folks can look that up online on YouTube and check it out, because it really was a good event.
What's the YouTube channel?
It's actually on Invest Caribbean. So we have it on our channel. Yes.
You know something, you made a statement earlier about you have all these other African Americans, Asian Americans, but there is not really a thing. I don't usually hear people say Caribbean American. So for you to say that, that's a segment of the population that's almost, non-existent. How do you feel about that?
Well, that's really why we launched and I started the Carib ID movement. If you remember, that was going back in 2008, was the same exact thing. Because when I looked at the census form, there was no way that I could identify myself. So I felt disrespected. Here was I in this country paying taxes, and I could not identify myself on a simple form. And I realized also it was impacting businesses and really the respect of the Caribbean community. Because if we did not have the data, if we don't know how many Caribbean people there are in this country, if we don't know how much they're spending, what they're spending it on, like every other community, especially the Hispanic community, then we can't fight for anything. We can't grow our businesses. We can't grow our communities. We can't get grants. I mean, the census impacts every aspect of our lives, how many people we get elected to represent our issues. It's just been a whole lot. So that's really what I think the census is what triggered my real interest and understanding at the depth of the disrespect. And that disrespect, I think it continues, but it's getting less and less, especially since in 2020, we were finally able to now write in our ancestry on the census forms because of our fight. And now we're able to hopefully get that data soon to be able to start telling our stories so that we can tell.
Nice.
We're starting to see that actually, because the Pew Center just came out with a major thing about Black immigrants, and the Caribbean immigrant community is very much represented there in terms of the growth, in terms of people who are the most likely to have homes, less likely to live on poverty and be in that poverty level. So we have significant economic data, and I believe that if we can start really telling our stories, we're going to be definitely, the immigrant community to watch especially in the next 2 to 5 years.
It's interesting that you talk about the numbers and Caribbean nationals owning their own homes, because one of the things people probably do not recognize, Caribbean nationals who come to the United States or migrate to the United States, most of them already own their homes. Yeah. So a lot of people are not leaving the Caribbean renting. Most people own their homes. So I think it's very natural to move to the United States and want to own a home. So I think that little bit of history is not well known. And so people, shouldn't be surprised that most Caribbean nationals living in the United States actually own their homes, because that is something that they're used to.
Yep, they definitely do. And they also are small business owners. So they basically create their own employment. And then they also support 2 families. So they're supporting one family here, and they're sending money back to support another family back home, and still making it and still surviving and still not living on SNAP or any of the social programs. Not that I have
That is so
anything against that,
true.
but that is really our story. And
Mm-hmm.
so people think, they always, I've heard this a lot, and including from African Americans when I was working in the Black media, is like, oh, you Caribbean people, you come here to really just benefit from what we've done. And I'm like, no,
Oh,
we did
wow.
not.
We
Or I
work
would hear
hard. We
like,
work hard.
yeah, you just came off the boat. We didn't come on any boat. I always told them I never came on a boat. So I don't know what nonsense
I
and what
know
kind of
the
crap you got, what
misinformation.
history you're studying, but I certainly didn't come on a boat here.
Yeah, misconceptions. So we are strong people, and we are fighters. We come here on a mission, and the mission is for us to build ourselves and to make a better life for ourselves and our family members. So let's move on to your background in public relations. I'm sure in the audience we have some people who would love to start a business, but the first thing some people may think of is to get their names out there and probably to grow a social media audience. Can you please tell us what PR is and how it can help starting a business?
Well, first of all, I think you have to, when you're starting out, and these are things that I wish that somebody had told me, but I had to learn this myself, is that you have to make sure that your brand and the visual brand that you're creating is actually really strong, and it's something that you're going to stick with. So you're not going to be changing it halfway. So make sure you've got that. You have the vision of exactly what you want to portray. So take time and really think these things through, and don't just slap on any just logo on it just because you want to get started. So think, because that's your branding. You think about the font size, you think about the colors you want to
Mm,
present, you think about all of that. Then you want to now get into thinking about, how do I start? Do I want a website? Do I want to set up a social media page? How do I really want to do this? And so you have to really think that through as well. And you want to have an easy website. You have to learn about these things like search engine optimization, a little bit of actual Google trending. So you have to do research into that, and make sure that you're very aware of what exactly it is that it takes to really tag your site, be able to get those keywords from your sector so you can research this. And all of this is free. So you just go in on Google and you type these things in and make sure that you have that information, because I think knowledge is real power. And
mhm.
in this digital era that we're living in, and social media era, it is really, really all about content and content creation. And that is it, because we have so many free platforms. I don't know how much longer they're going to stay free, but thank God we have a whole lot of free platforms. So you have no excuse of, oh, I don't have a budget. You
Right.
can do this. You have a smartphone. You can sit in front of it and you can create the podcast. You can create the video. You can post it on
Mhm.
YouTube, Instagram. You have a whole lot of different free graphics companies like Canva that you can go on and create your own little graphic, your own little logo, and have all of these pieces. So once you have that created now, then you can think about, now how do I start telling my story? And that's where it comes in terms of content. You start sharing it. Maybe you want to do a press release. You want to get that out, but you also need to focus on your social media. I think the social media and that digital footprint that you're starting to create on these channels is really key in terms of pushing your brand and your company into the future. So the press releases, yes, that's one aspect, but remember, you want to have like a prong approach. So you want to have a multi-prong approach. Make sure that what you're doing is really, really something that you're telling your story, and then using that story once you post it on your social media pages to actually boost them, because now you want to stand out in the crowd. It's a real crowded marketplace. Even if
Mhm.
you spend $1 a day boosting your content and really zoning in on exactly the audience that you want to do, it's really the key to really pushing and making sure that you start building up your likes, your followers. And that is really where the key is, because now we're seeing people are making 160,000 a month from just having a social media presence because they have so many followers.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that really is the key. And there is like a whole lot of resources online that's free. a lot of great people who are really educating you all the time. People like Gary V, who was just a master marketer. If you haven't heard about Gary V, you've got to follow him on Instagram. People like Jay Shetty, who is now teaching his way
Yes.
of social branding to it. Mark Lack is another guy who was actually teaching. He's done very well on social media. So also the other little tip that I want to give folks is make sure that when you're setting up your social media channels, don't pick like 100 ones. Just pick like about 3 that you can manage, you can control, and you can keep adding content. So don't add one content this month and then you don't add it again for another couple of months, because people are constantly logging in. They want to see like fresh content. So even if you can do it once a week, do that and make sure you constantly, you're paying attention and growing that. And now you also, I think a little bit of budget goes a long way in terms of how you actually pay to boost your content and pay to actually, grow your following. And that's really where the key is, because once you have that base, even if you have 500 people, those are people that, follow you, that you can now turn into potential clients and customers and start selling, to in mini groups or groups, whatever you want to set up. There's just so much potential now that it blows my mind, because I am always learning and trying to, grow in this digital field. And really it is key, especially for small and medium-sized businesses, to understand how everything has changed in the digital
Yes, it
marketing
certainly
sphere.
has. We have many options, and you have to know which one would be most effective for your audience. So you may have touched on this already, but just to go back a little deeper into it, what are some of the prerequisites that businesses must meet in order to be ready for public relations?
Well, first of all, obviously you have to be legally set up, and that's something else that you need to like really pay attention to. So don't set up your business in a state where the tax ratio is really high. Try to look at states that actually have a very low tax rate that you can actually benefit and grow your business too. So that is key. Make sure that you also have a good accountant that you can really make sure, if you're doing your business plan, get your business plan done, get an investor deck done, get a projection done. You want to think all of this through before you really start doing anything, because otherwise you'll end up having to do like me, learning in the middle of everything and juggling 100 things. And so I wish that somebody had taken me aside when I was just starting out and told me this. And so that's why I'm so passionate about sharing that knowledge. And it's something that we also want to do on our podcast, Hard to Beat, which is also share that knowledge with entrepreneurs in terms of how they grow and how they do different things that can help them grow. So those are the things you want to really do first before you start pushing out. A lot of us like the flash. We like to get out there and make big announcements. Oh, we've launched this company, and then you click on the website and it doesn't work
Nothing.
and it doesn't go anywhere, or the social media looks like crap. You want to take time to really make sure that you have these pieces in place before you really start getting to that announcement phase. And then once you're ready for the announcement, then like I said, you get to the, you can do your press release. You can do, now another big thing you have to look at is really making sure once you're launched online, you have your website, you have to look at listings. That's a big thing now in this digital sector, because without listings, your website is not going to be found. You have to make sure your website is Google optimized. So you got to claim that Google optimization. So when people search for put in on Google, look for your name, it comes up there, and the company's address and everything is correct. Right. You have to make sure you list all of that correctly, because the search engines pull all of this information. The other thing why you have to make sure your information and your social media and website, all of that is correct, is because now we're into something called customer voice, where people are actually asking, like we do all the time. We ask Alexa, what's the closest business? that serves food, or Caribbean restaurant closest to me, or nail salon closest to me. So people are largely now depending on voice for this. Siri, they ask the same thing. So that is also a major reason why you
Wow.
have to pay attention to listings and your custom voice.
Mm-hmm.
Another big thing now is, as you get started, is reviews. So you got to be able to tap into your clients and have them start reviewing your site, and then having them post that online. So you can easily have that set up for you with a text. You send that text out to your client. They have a link. They go back, they write a little thing. It goes automatically on your website.
Mm-hmm.
And these are all things that we do at Heartbeat for clients, because we realize how really heavily it's shifted in the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years. Everything is shifted. And a lot of our businesses, especially in our community in the Caribbean, American community in the Caribbean, we're not getting caught up on all these things. We have no clue. We're just going through the motion. We just barely have a website. We just barely have, some social media page. We don't understand there's a whole other world that's out there. And the other thing you have to do in terms of getting your site ranking, which is why a lot of people ask, oh, when I search, how come I'm not up in the first page of Google? How come I'm not there? Well, because you haven't done your search engine optimization. And that is something that you have to do. SEO is really key. You got to keep doing that. And that's a service you got to pay for that you do every month. And they're doing it, building it link by link on the back end, so that your links start growing and you start getting a lot of backlinks. And then Google tells it, okay, this company has a lot of backlinks. It must be important. So now we're going to push it up to the top of our first 10 people on that site. So those are some things that you have to also do. And then after that, once you get all of these pieces together, then you have to constantly keep doing your digital advertising using Facebook. And like I said, $1 a day goes a long way, $5 a day, but boost your content. Make sure that you're geo-targeting to the client. You can do all of this through Facebook and Instagram now. And it's just one platform once you have that page. Another thing I want to say is, like, a lot of people think they set up a profile and they think that's their page. No, it's not. It's not your business page. Your page is totally different from your profile. So you first have to set up a profile, and then you set up the page that is really your brand, your business. And that's where you basically want to now start promoting and boosting content on, and having people like that, so that you start growing your likes. And then you also have the option to obviously link them to your website if there's something you're selling. That is really the key of how you're growing and branding in this 2022. These are all pieces that are important, and you got to really learn it.
Yeah, that's a lot of helpful information for those who are thinking about how do they promote their own companies. Now, I know that you have a PR, you do a lot of PR work, and you provide different kinds of services. But there are also people who are also thinking of doing their own thing. Is there a way for people to get started with public relations exposure on their own?
Yeah, they basically, there are lots of people who are doing it, and I applaud them. Listen, you got to take the bull by the horn and do it. You know what you're called to do. Sometimes you get like spoken to by the spirit, and it moves you and say, oh, I have to do this. But you also have to now move with sort of knowledge. And so that's the key that you have to add. Yes, you may have an idea and you have to do it, but you want to think true. And I think too often, and I know I'm guilty of this too, because I did not know when I started. Like I said, I started my own company because I was fired from a job. So I had to survive. And this was what I pivoted to. But nobody took me aside and told me, oh, well, don't register your company in New York, register in it in Delaware, because the tax laws are different there. Nobody took me aside and taught me how to make a website, how to do all these things. I had to teach myself everything. So that is really the knowledge that we share, and also that our company now offers to a lot of small businesses. So if you don't know any of this, we have like a whole lot of different slew of services that we offer now. And it's really just, on a subscription basis. So you don't have to have a huge budget. You don't have to have think, oh, I have to pay $10,000 for an agency. I think that is nonsense now. And a lot of our, especially not just small companies, but our governments in the region and bigger companies should really become aware of the money they're wasting paying out all of these big US agencies that have zero minority representation when they can actually have companies that look like them, people who are from the region,
I
and who
understand.
actually can show them something way better and cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Like, our agency, we just charge a subscription for the exact service that the client requires.
Mm-hmm.
We don't charge a huge retainer. We don't charge for people who we don't take money and say, oh, well, we're going to deliver, and we don't. That's not what we do. We basically saying, look, you pay $80, you want to have a monthly listing, that's it. That's what you're paying for. That's what you're getting. And you're getting more. You're getting us guiding you through the process. You're getting your own dashboard that you can actually log in and see what is happening. You're getting a weekly report that tells you exactly what is happening with your company. And so these are all facets that we've had to actually evolve into because of the COVID too. And the COVID has really taken a hit, I think, on everybody's business. And now we're just completely on this whole digital path. So we actually know how to help, these companies grow, help them grow with a small budget, and really grow into a bigger budget and grow into where they want to be. And, we certainly hope that they will connect with us.
So what is the best advice you have for starting entrepreneurs?
Well, I think the best advice is really to learn, try to get as much knowledge as you can on the sector that you want to get into. So if you want to be able to sell products online, then learn digital marketing tactics, learn from the best, learn from the gurus, just Google people who are major. People like Ty Lopez is another guy who started his company. He's a multimillionaire now. And you know how much money he started with? $45.
Wow.
Yes. And so it's all about really learning, and everybody has a skill. I think everybody now has no excuse because the technology is really for you. If you have a phone and you're on Facebook talking nonsense or posting nonsense every day, you can actually be an e-marketer. You can be a social media marketer. You have talent that you can actually harness to really help yourself and grow. If you know how to, for instance, edit, people are doing courses, they're teaching whole classes online and selling those courses. And that is like a whole other, way of making money. So I think there is so much that is going on right now that we need to tap into as a community, and especially our young people. If they know how to do videos on TikTok, they know all of the technology, then use it for something that benefits you and helps you grow. Don't just use it to be idle and to be posting nonsense of
or to become popular. I have a lot of followers without any.
Yeah, absolutely. Use your followers for money, because that is an asset. You're actually creating an asset that you don't even know. Your followers are your asset. Everybody who comes to you, you can be earning money now as an affiliate. So you can join affiliate companies, and these are companies that pay every time somebody clicks on the ad that is on your social post or your YouTube channel or your website. These are all ways of making money. Sponsored posts, if you have a website that is reporting on things, you can actually be open now to sponsored posts. And this is where clients are paying you to post content that is relevant to that niche audience, and they actually have a link in it because they're trying to build their SEO and their backlinks. And that is how the PR has moved. So PR nowadays, it's not just somebody sending out a press release all willy-nilly and thinking, oh, I've done PR and hope the media picks it up. That's not PR, because you've got now the power. I think every one of us is a PR agent now, because we've got the power in our hand.
Yes.
And you know what the power is? This here is the power. Your phone,
your cell phone,
all that you need to do everything.
Wonderful. So Felicia, now you have a brand, 4 different brands. If someone wanted to reach out to you, have questions, or perhaps wanted to do partner with you and do business, how can they reach you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can reach out to us, heartbeatcommunications.com or investcaribbean.com. Just send a message via the contact, and we'll definitely, more than happy to reach out to you. We're going to actually be launching our whole, just the corporate side of the company where all the brands are there. So people are going to be able to just go there one place and find everything that we do and easily connect with us in a much easier way. But really, those are really the places that you can, we're always very responsive online. And that's the main way I always tell people, if you want to reach me, just send me an email, because it's easier for me to reach back
to
and
keep
connect
track
with
too.
you.
Yes, that's really good. So if someone is really thinking of, I have a business idea, but you know what, I don't know if this is going to succeed, so they're kind of wanting to start but still holding back, what would you say to that person?
I always say start, like, listen. First of all, listen to your spirit. Like, people call it the gut feeling. They call it like the quiet voice. Something told me inside. Just listen to that. It never ever fails you. It never like guides you wrong. It's your intuition that you need to tap into. And if you feel strongly that this is what your intuition is telling you, that I think that is the most high God speaking to you. So you have to now follow through. And the way to follow through is to now start educating yourself about that. So for instance, maybe that you've got this idea that you want to start a nonprofit, or maybe you've got an idea that you want to start a restaurant or a catering service. Now go out there and look up the top 10 caterers or top 10 restaurants or top 10 people who are doing this on social media that really have a high following. Look at what they're doing. Try to look up interviews that they've done that actually tells you how they got started and what they did. But most of all, you have to now that you have that knowledge, you have to have a plan. So don't just go at this all without any plan. You have to have a plan. You have to organize. You have to have a structure, because you want to be able now, if you go to an investor or if you go to any company that you want to raise money from, you have to have a business plan. You have to have an investor deck. You have to have your financial projection of where you see this happening 3 to 5 years. How much money do you think you can actually make in 3 to 5 years? So you yourself need that plan, because that is what will keep you focused. It is more for you to be able to visualize this and be able to see where you want to be in 5 years than actually the investor, almost, because you're the one whose dream it is, and you're the one who has to tell that story. You're the one who really have to be the convincing party that people believe in. And I think that is really, the key to me. Those are the things I wish that somebody had told me, that I didn't have to learn by myself the
But
hard way.
the good thing is now you can share the lessons
Exactly.
that
I
you've
think
learned. And
that's what I think God has, that's why he put me through all these tests. Sometimes I tell myself, I feel like I was in a cauldron of boiling, acid. And God used that to purify me so that I can be a testimony. And I have no problem. Listen, I will share my knowledge because I would love to be a legacy so that people can actually look back and say, okay, she did it, I can do it. And I'm telling you, I was undocumented, but here I am now.
Yeah, you are.
So take that as an inspiration, but be careful, because you have to put in the work. This is not an easy thing. I'm actually up almost up to 12 o'clock. I'm going to my bed after 12 most nights. So it's not easy, but you have to know if it is what you want to do. You got to be willing to put in the work and put in the sacrifice. And there are times you're going to get overwhelmed. You're going to want to give up. You're going to want to fall down, but you have to really know that where you want to go, stay focused on that goal. I think that is the key. And of course, tap into the spirit, because you've got to have that spirit man strong, as well as the physical, to keep doing what you're doing.
That was definitely you heading into my next question to you. Doing business is not easy. You talk about your podcast. I'm doing a podcast. it is hard work. And most of the successful people who are doing well today, they go to bed at night just like you do too. It's not just I wake up at 9 o'clock and I go back to bed 8 o'clock at night. Most people are up doing work all 2, 3 o'clock in the morning because that's what it takes to keep the business going. But on top of all of that, what would you say is the most rewarding thing for you, being the CEO of your own company?
Well, I think obviously the most rewarding thing is nobody can fire me from this. This is mine. I could either make it or break it. It's mine. I also get to choose how long I want to work at it. If I want to work into 3 o'clock in the morning, it's my job. If I want to take off tomorrow, that's also my prerogative too. I don't have to think, oh, I don't have vacation days and I don't have this. And, so it's really, I think the joy of it is something that you're building and you can see that and you can control aspects of it and you can make the changes. So if there is something that needs to be changed, you're the one that can really pull that trigger and say, no, let's do this, let's do that. So you have that power and control. And I think that is key. But it's a lot. There are days when I am really feeling down and overwhelmed and, just dark. And I don't know how, like, God, why did you bring me here? Why did you put me on this path? Why couldn't I just have like some 9 to 5 job and not worry myself so much? But it's really at the end of the day, I just, get up and I say, well, you know what, Lord, you're a will, so you'll make a way.
Right.
So I don't see a way. So you have to be able to have that spiritual thing is what I'm saying. Because you'll need it. As an entrepreneur, it's a very lonely path. Everybody's looking to you, even the people who work for you, they're looking to you for everything. You got to get your idea. What is this? Do this. How do I do this? So it's a constant game that you have to be prepared for. So for me, I cope with obviously my spirituality, which has grown tremendously over the years. And I think that is key. But I also am now a very avid bodybuilding fan. So I started like really lifting weights from.
Oh, wow. Look at you.
Yeah. So I am really, because I have this crazy idea that I'm going to be one of these fitness models and also be on stage as a bodybuilder, which is always.
Are you serious?
Yes,
wow,
that's
Felicia.
like my thing. It's like a female bodybuilder. So every day I wake up, I actually say this out loud to in my affirmations. I say, oh, thank you, God, I have the body of a female bodybuilder. And, so because that's what excites me about this whole working out, like these women who are amazingly, cut and really just sculpted. And that's what I want to look like. So I really
very interesting, Felicia.
It actually helps me a whole lot more than meditation. Because once I get in the gym, which I schedule religiously now, it's like once I get in there, I don't think of anything else. My head is
it's your escape.
I'm just in that moment, and it is the most beautiful thing for me. So you got to also find that outlet is what I'm really trying to get to, is get that outlet. So don't just be all about work. You got to have an outlet of what you to relieve stress and relieve tension, so that you can have that balance and you can really have a clear mind and really be able to hear what the spirit is telling you. So you can have that clear vision plan for your life and the business.
So is there anything you would like to share that I didn't ask?
Well, it's I think one of the major things that people don't understand, they see me and they've seen a lot of things that I've done, and they've seen a lot of, they believe like I'm just like superwoman and I'm so super successful. And I don't know what people believe, but I tell you, there are some really hard moments of my life that I go through that people really would be shocked to know. That I cry, really cry, that I think about, oh, I don't know if I can go on, that I think maybe I can jump off a cliff because I don't know how this is going to work out. So I think that's really something that people don't know. They always see somebody who's happy and positive, and they don't know that pain and the darkness.
They see the front end. They don't see the back end.
They don't know the alone, like how you feel alone sometimes. Like you're completely alone, and then you have to bring yourself back to say, you know what, I'm not alone. I have God with me, and He's always there. And so I think those are the moments that people really would be shocked to
Mm-hmm.
know that I go through. But as my Baba says to me all the time, it's like, Felicia, you're like Virginia Slims. You know, you've come a long way and have a long way to go. So just look back when you're in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
look back at the sadness
Yeah, I
and
mean,
the pain. And
you have
then,
multiple brands in your company, so clearly, I mean, success is not easy. No, I don't think anybody that say, "Oh, this was easy." You're not speaking to the right person. To be successful, it take work to maintain and to continue to be successful. So I think, I want to thank you for sharing your story and sharing your experience and, providing some of your insights that will potentially help someone who's undecided about which way they want to go. And I want to wish you all the very best in all of your business ventures. And I hope this podcast was helpful to anyone who's trying to be an entrepreneur or get into the kind of business that you are doing, or in any business for a matter of fact, because the some of the tips you provided could essentially work in any business.
absolutely. Thank you so much. It's a real honor. And just want to say, anybody want to reach out to us, please feel free.
Can you just give us one more time the website?
Sure. It's heartbeatcommunications.com or investcaribbeannow.com. So those are our two websites. You want to reach out and check out everything we do, and how we can help you. We'll be more than happy to talk with you and guide you.
Excellent. Felicia, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.